Have you ever heard of Candyman? And if you look in the mirror, you say his name 5 times.
In cities everywhere,
Candyman.
they whisper his name.
Right. Candyman.
It's just a story.
Candyman.
Candyman.
Just a ghost story.
Candyman.
An entire community starts attributing the daily horrors of their lives to a mythical figure.
The legend first appeared in 1890. He was attacked, mutilated, and burned to death. Poor Candyman.
Welcome to the latest episode of the podcast that wouldn't die. I'm your host, Kevin. With me, as always, is Aaron.
What up, Coronaville?
This week, we'll be discussing the horror classic, Candyman, starring Virginia Madsen, Xander Berkeley, and Tony Todd. You know him, don't you?
Who's Xander Berkeley?
He plays the cheating husband. Spoiler alert.
Oh, what a name. That's such a hipster name. He was ahead of his time.
Well, do you know what he was in most famously?
I know him, but
He's been in a ton of stuff.
Of course.
But the earliest thing I remember him in was
the
Mommy
Gnome-Mobile?
Dearest.
Oh, he played the brother,
Yep.
Christopher.
There you go.
Oh,
The other adopted child.
Well,
He's a big
actually,
star.
there were 4 children. Actually,
I don't remember. More recently, he was on The Walking Dead.
oh,
For
was he?
a couple seasons. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was after I stopped watching it. After I got bored.
He was the leader of the Hilltop community for a while there.
The Hills of Eyes.
The Hills Have Eyes. Good times. Why don't you give us your 30-second synopsis of The Candyman Can?
Apparently, black people in the projects in Chicago have a phantom who kills them, and it's quite horrible. It has something to do with post-slavery and an affair with a white woman. And people, this is the time when everybody was all about urban legends. So people were researching this legend of the Candyman. And, it turns out to be his long-lost love. She's having none of it. Everybody's dead. The end.
Good work. Nicely done.
This is another Wes Craven semi...
Not directed by Wes Craven.
What?
Not directed by Wes Craven.
Who directed this?
His name is Bernard Rose.
Oh my God, because it smells like Wes Craven, especially all the jib-jab about the exquisite pain. Maybe he was a dungeon master with Wes Craven.
Well, but you know why it's exquisite pain? It's because it was based on the story very loosely, based on the story by Clive Barker.
Clive Barker!
Yes.
Who did the Pinhead movies?
Yes, that's Clive Barker.
Clive okay.
Barker wrote.
Sorry,
Yes.
Wes Craven. Clive Barker.
How dare you.
As soon as I heard the exquisite pain line, I was like, oh, mofo. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Hellraiser Joe, old Clive Barker.
It's I don't know what Clive Barker's down with, but methinks it's some rough trade.
Exquisite pain.
Exquisite pain is
pretty
rough
clear.
trade. Yeah.
Yeah, if you've read any of Clive Barker's books, it's like they go there.
Mm-hmm.
They go there deep. It's always like, because it's kind of like, you think Stephen King is kind of sick and twisted?
No.
Clive goes the extra mile.
Clive
He
for
goes the
sure
extra mile.
goes the extra mile. Stephen King is like watching Elmo compared to this twisted shit.
It is right. Stephen King is Barney, basically.
I love you. You love me. Yeah.
Pretty much.
I didn't know you were so deep with Clive. Tell me, how many of his books have you read?
I actually only read when I was I was backpacking through Europe, and you will go to like the local bookstore just to entertain yourself. There was a compilation that he'd written called like the Book of the Dead or something like that, book 1. Volume 1, whatever it was, and there was a bunch of short stories.
Shit, this sounds like the opening of Hostel or something. Dear God.
It's the opening of Hostel mixed with Evil Dead, where I'm opening forbidden texts and reading. Yeah, good times. But you catch the hint early that it's not just kind of frightening stuff. It's like always kind of like deviant sex stuff mixed in as well. You get the whole
I'm not
Monty.
sure I'm having an orgasm if it's thoughts of my skin being peeled off. No, not so
Well,
much.
to each their own.
To each their own. God bless.
Judge not.
God bless the cinema and literature, or for sure Clive Barker would have been a serial killer. I'm quite sure.
Oh, no question. No question. So the movie is based upon a short story called The Forbidden, which takes place actually in Liverpool. Makes more sense. And actually this movie was originally going to take place in Liverpool. But this movie is kind of a hodgepodge of a million different things kind of swirled together. The original short story, The Forbidden, is about somebody doing their thesis. So there's that connection.
Right.
And again, I kept asking myself, what major is this for? What major? I mean, in the book, a thesis on studying graffiti. So I don't know, is that an art history?
So
thesis?
that would be art history, but I would think that urban legends would be like a cultural anthropology or something.
That's what I was thinking. Like they're becoming anthropologists or something along those lines. In the movie, they're studying folklore or urban legends or things like that. That's basically what's going on. So in the original story, woman is investigating graffiti in kind of this impoverished neighborhood in Liverpool, and while she's there, she hears rumors of this urban legend, the Candyman.
Right.
Now, it's a short story, so they cut right to the chase. Of course, she meets the Candyman, and she becomes famous by becoming his latest victim, basically. That's the story. That's it. They took that.
They added a little bit more stuff to that.
They added a lot of stuff to that, but let's just jump in. Okay, so like we said, there are two researchers. I guess they're like doctoral students, essentially. Helen,
grad students at least.
Grad students, thank you. Helen and Bernadette are just interviewing people on folklore that they've heard. And of course, it's that, alligators in the sewer kind of stuff going on. But early on, they tell the story of the Candyman. And there's a flashback, right? So there's a babysitter watching a child, and then the bad boy pulls up in his motorcycle. They're into some kinky stuff. She takes them to the bathroom where she says, if you say Candyman 5 times, this ghostly character with a hook for a hand will appear breathing down your neck and will kill you.
It's Bloody Mary.
It's Bloody Mary. It's the old urban legend of the guy with the hook.
Yep.
There's all sorts. So it's, again, not from the original story. It's a grab bag of interesting little choices here. So she says it, or he says it, the bad boy, played by what famous actor? Who's the bad boy?
I don't know. Who is it?
Ted Raimi.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, my God. I think I must have had a mini stroke because literally I was screaming for William to come in here. William, Who is this guy? Tell me who it is. Because I immediately knew it was Ted Raimi, even though apparently right now I blanked out. And I was like, dude, Xena Warrior Princess, Brother Bear.
That's right.
He's like,
He doesn't just work on his brother Sam's movies. Is basically what occasionally somebody else will throw him a bone here. So he's the bad boy. He says Candyman 4 times.
Because Ted Raimi seems so dangerous.
He's dangerous. He's
dangerous in kind of a John Denver kind of way.
Exactly. So he goes downstairs to get a beer. The girl, who's half naked, says it the 5th time.
Yeah,
and then,
that shouldn't count. It's like Beetlejuice. If 3 people just say it once, Beetlejuice doesn't appear. The one person has to say it every time. That's why I was like, what? I disagree with that choice.
I agree. I agree. And frankly, if you watch this movie, they don't adhere to the whole "say my name 5 times" too often. It's not a reoccurring theme in this movie. People are killed all the time in this movie who don't even say it once.
Yes.
So there you have it.
And I don't even understand how his backstory has anything to do with what he's doing. I mean, they try to string together this incoherent. I'm like, so
Right.
you were killed for falling in love with a white woman. So you're gonna murder children in the projects? What?
Okay, so this movie takes place in Chicago, primarily in the real life Cabrini Green projects. I guess they were just torn down over the last couple of years. But the backstory of Candyman, and why is he called Candyman, is another question.
Because of the bees stung him full of honey, so he's so sweet, he's like candy? I don't know.
In the original story, he's called the Candyman. But again, the backstory doesn't come from the books at all. The backstory in the movie, like you said, he was the son of a former slave 150 years ago or whatever it was.
Famous artist.
Who had, prodigious artistic ability, was hired by a wealthy landowner to teach his white daughter painting, I guess, something along those lines.
I thought he was supposed to do her portrait.
It was either one or the other. And he walks in, I guess, wearing his fancy... his fur duster jacket, and she is so entranced that they fall in love madly, and he impregnates her. So now she's pregnant with his baby. The wealthy landowner flips out, hires some local toughs to saw his hand off with a rusty blade, stick a hook in the stump. Why? I don't know. And then take his naked body to a nearby beehive. I mean, like a field of bees that are happening to be there.
Field of bees. Pour honey all over them. This is where we're getting into some Clive's King.
Yep.
Let the bees sting him, and then they kill him. I think he was already dead. Was he dead with the bees?
The bees are what killed him. I think the bees is what...
They beat him. They stuck him to the bee with the port of honey, so the bees came to feed on it. And then what did they do? They burned him or something?
I don't know if they burned him or not. It's possible. I don't remember. So now you got this convoluted story. Okay, I'm gonna jump in here. Let's say Hollywood calls Aaron and says, "Aaron, we've got this short story by Clark Barker. There's a spectral villain called the Candyman. There's no other backstory. Create a backstory. In 1,000,000 years, would you combine slavery with a hook, with Bloody Mary, with bees?"
Was he black in the original story?
No.
I mean, it doesn't matter whether he's black or not black. Maybe they thought it would be racist if he was attacking white people or something. Is that why they had him attack the poor people? I mean, it makes it... Why do you even go into the backstory when it really has nothing to do with any part of this story? Right. Except that he has a hook.
It's super convoluted. But if we just ignore all of, like how did they even come up with this craziness? Just ignore it. So... Don't ask no questions.
Because they keep going back and telling the story. And then there's a freaking mural at the end.
Yes.
Which, I don't know, did he paint that with his stump too? Or do ghosts magically paint things?
We're jumping all over the place.
All right, go ahead.
No. I don't care. 3/4 of the way into the movie, it's that same kind of Dracula kind of thing where it's like a Blackula even, where it's like you bear a striking resemblance to my love from 150 years ago, right?
And the mommy, and Blackula.
Yes.
Except this time she's like, she's not having it. And quite frankly, the Candyman's quite an attractive man.
Tony Todd is a dashing fellow. Let me tell you.
He's a dashing, even with his fur-lined duster and his bloody hook. And they could have played that up a little bit, but instead, they didn't really give him any personality.
Well, they tried to make it kind of a romance Which
What's part of it?
Right.
Where he kept making her kill people?
Well, it was like there's a lot of like him coming up behind her and being like, "Be my victim," but it's like he's Dracula or something where he's like holding her and carrying her.
Sounds
and
more like
kissing her.
he's Weinstein.
He's Weinstein in the whole deal.
Oh my God, that's a whole different horror movie.
It is. But that's what's hilarious is there's a scene because in this there's like evidently a huge area, like a loft practically, where eventually Helen finds herself
on top of Cabrini Green.
On top
like
of yes,
multiple stories where the rest of the buildings are cinder block.
Yes,
but this seems to be made out of like an old barn. So you're on top of Cabrini Green.
And it's huge. And he, again, being an artist, even though his good right hand has been lopped off, he does all this art. And she discovers, here's the picture of Candyman from like the 1800s. And here's the picture of the love. And it's zoom in like, oh my God, it's me. But I got to tell you, didn't look
anything like her.
I mean, nothing like her. And frankly, Lionel Richie in the Hello video, the blind sculptor.
Oh God,
that damn thing looked closer to Lionel Richie than this thing looked like to her. Okay,
and that ain't good.
Brother.
That ain't good.
If you have not seen the Hello video, YouTube it. When they reveal,
is so awkward.
It's
so awkward.
A blind woman who he's in love with secretly. Sculpts his bust in clay, I guess, essentially. And the grand reveal is, who is this? What is this? Is that Dr. J? Who is this supposed to be?
Exactly. It's so insulting.
He was too polite to mention it to the blind sculptress, however.
Exactly. Poor Lionel.
Very sad. Okay, so back to the story. So Helen and Bernie are doing this, writing their thesis on the folklore.
Bernie Sanders?
Her name's Bernadette, but she goes by Bernie. They are like, hey, we can do all this research, all this folklore, these urban legends, but we got an actual urban legend right here in Chicago. We have to go to the Cabrini Green projects, which I guess at the time were like infested with drug dealers and crime.
Oh, it was huge. It was on 60 Minutes like every 5 minutes.
People did not want to drive by, basically. Drive by in their car, they'd be the victim of a drive-by, is basically the feeling.
Yeah.
So they go, and of course they're kind of harassed a little bit. It's like an episode of The Wire, if you haven't seen that.
I never saw The Wire.
You are missing out. The Wire is one of the best shows. I mean, I put it up there with Breaking Bad and all the rest.
I've heard that's true.
It's excellent. Only 5 seasons. So there you go.
All right.
Anywho, so they go up because basically there was an actual murder in the newspapers that occurred a few years back. Ruthie Jean called the cops because somebody was coming through her wall. And the cops didn't believe her and didn't come. She called again. Cops didn't believe her, didn't come. And by then it was too late. They eventually found her.
That was a problem back in the day. Actually, the police were afraid to come.
Right. Well,
because it was so dangerous.
Some would argue it's a problem today in certain communities. Yeah. So anyway, earlier in the movie, Helen discovered, or basically found out that in these tenement projects, the hell's going on?
Oh my God, what's happening?
I'm dropping things off the table here. Anyway, in these projects, the medicine cabinets in the bathroom, if you pulled them out, there was no wall separating one apartment from the next. It was just the back of the next apartment's medicine cabinet. So,
oh my God.
And this is actually based on a real...
If I ever live in an apartment again, I'm going to go check that out.
Better check it. And evidently, this is a true story that there were murders where the killer used that to gain entrance into these apartments. You lock the door and they're coming in through the bathroom. So she goes, and because people feel the Candyman are the ones who killed Ruthie Jean.
Right.
So they go and make their way to it. And Helen is like serious. She's like, move in the medicine cabinet. Here's an old spooky burnt out apartment that's connected to it. She's climbing in. Apparently in this other apartment, there are no like regular doors to speak of. Every like entrance is like somebody took a sledgehammer to a wall or something.
Yeah. And it's just empty. I mean, this place is like a drug den. You figured they'd be doing business. They have all this just empty spaces. You figure people would have been in there squatting, dealing, doing something in there.
Absolutely. They meet a couple people while they're there. They meet Anne Marie, who's a single mom, just trying to make ends meet. But she was the next door neighbor of Ruthie Jean and heard the entire attack. So she's very concerned. At first, she doesn't want to help them because when the white people come, they just cause problems.
Right.
Basically. And I understand.
Well, it's true.
It's absolutely true.
Historically, that's probably quite true.
They also meet little Jake, who's I don't know, what is he, like 10 years old? Maybe even less?
I don't know. He's probably got one of those kidney diseases, like all those. He's 35, actually.
He's got progeria? Is that what you're saying?
he's got the Benjamin.
Oh, that's what it is. It's Benjamin Button's disease. So they're learning more about the Candyman here and there. We also meet Helen's husband, who is a college professor also teaching folklore. His name's Trevor.
Yeah, Trevor. From Bang. You know, he's just a dick.
Well, yeah. Number one, he's teaching a folklore unit on urban legends when his wife has already asked him not to because she's trying to interview kids, students at the school, their personal interactions with urban legends, their opinions, things that they've heard, kind of thing. And he's kind of poisoning the well by teaching all about it. So so
he's just an arrogant F, you know.
And he's like, honey, I've got to follow the curriculum. Yeah.
You're the one making the freaking curriculum, you ding dong dow.
Very sad. And of course, while she's there, some co-ed is giving him the eyes, where it's like obvious. It's obvious he's already having the affair with the co-ed from pretty much Jump Street. Helen sees this immediately and kind of busts his chops. He's like, what are you talking about? I would never do anything like that. Are you kidding me?
The fact that she's eyeing every little chickie in the room tells me that she has a reason to.
Oh, absolutely. We've been down this road before.
Uh-huh. And quite frankly, we've been down this road before. Your husband's rolling in at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. My A.
Well, and it's like, honey, I got to go to a meeting. I'll be back in 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah.
I'll be back at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe. He doesn't do a very good job of covering his tracks. Anyway, eventually Helen goes back to Cabrini Green. She meets Jake. Jake says he knows where the Candyman is, but he doesn't want to tell her because if I tell you, the Candyman will get me.
Right.
And he tells her a story how some kid went to the bathroom, like there was like this cinder block bathroom like you might find in the middle of a park or something like that.
Oh my God, this was so disturbing.
It was very disturbing. Across from like the Dollar Tree or whatever that the mom was shopping at, the kid goes to the bathroom by himself. And you hear the screams, "Mama, Mama!" And eventually, everyone comes running out of the store. Some tough guy tries to go in, and his hair turns white. Which is a reoccurring theme. It's like whoever is right there gets killed. Whoever's kind of tertiarily, I don't even know if it's the word, related to it, they survive, but their hair goes white and they go insane. Basically, that's what happened to Old Ted. That's what happens to the guy who runs in to try to save it. Evidently, the little boy was murdered in the bathroom.
Castrated.
Castrated. Yes.
Oh.
Horrible. So Helen's like, thanks for telling me this story. I'm going to go into the bathroom. She's taking pictures of all this stuff. And you keep seeing sweets to the sweet kind of painted everywhere. In the bathroom, of course, it's painted in
S.H.
Exactly. And I was like, how? Okay, look, I get it. You want to go in there, take your pictures. I swear she spends half an hour in that bathroom.
Yeah,
she's
vile. Going through every foul. I mean, because it serves which purpose? You just pop your head in, snap, jump back.
That's what I'm saying. She's opening the stalls. She opens one of the
She's
bowls.
like CSI crime investigator, except it's nothing but broken toilets and piles of shit.
Basically. So she opens up the bowl and it's full of bees. Bees!
Why would you open the bowl?
I would.
Why would you open the bowl?
It made no sense. I'm not inspecting the bowl. I'm not doing it. No kid
Does the
knew.
Candyman live in the bowl? Is that where
Is that part of the legend? Anyway, while she's in there, some local toughs appear, and it's the Candyman. He goes, I'm the Candyman. There's some guy wearing like a leather jacket who has like a hook. What is that? What are those hooks for? Like meat processing plants, or
is it a hay hook?
It could be for hay. It could be for like ice. I don't know. It's one of those
ice baby.
It's one of those things.
It's not for like hanging out with them.
It's not, absolutely not. And he kind of gives her the business, and he bops her in the head with it, just hits her with it, and knocks her out. The little boy Jake runs in and calls the cops, and so she's saved, but her eye is all jacked up. Like
it's all like Rocky Balboa.
It's like Rocky.
On one side.
It's bad.
I wanted to slit it open with a quarter.
You're right.
Remember that?
That's the way Mickey will do it in the Rocky movies. Rock.
Oh, anyway,
God. Sweet Lord. So, okay. So she's back at the cops. They're like, yeah, he's just, he's a drug dealer, gang leader, whatever he is. And he's killed people a long time. He probably killed Ruthie Jean. He probably killed the boy in the bathroom. But up to this point, no one was willing to testify. So thankfully, you're willing to testify. We're all good.
Yeah, because she don't got to live there. That's why
she ain't got to live there, basically. Okay, so then like time passes, and she's walking to her car, and her and Bernadette are like, "Hey, this is going to be so great. We're going to, our manuscript's going to be published. We'll be doing great." So she's getting into her like Corolla or whatever it is, and she hears the voice. You were looking for the Candyman, or something along those lines. And she turns around, and there's the real Candyman, Tony Todd, wearing literally ankle-length fur jacket with a hook on his right hand, which is still like blood.
It's all like pussy and oozy, and his stump is way too big.
It's as big as
it's like a 20-gallon painter bucket. It's so big.
Right. I mean, basically, if you took away the hook, he looks like Superfly from 1972.
I thought it looked good. It looked very like new romantic 80s kind of a thing with a hook.
His shoes are polished.
Yeah.
His shirt is like starched. Everything is all fancy, but then he's got like an oozing hook coming out of his. It's a collection of disparate styles there. Let's say the least. So he's talking to her. Be my victim. Be my victim. And now Tony Todd's voice is like James Earl Jones and Barry White. It is deep as can be. So, and she kind of goes into like a fugue state, but I don't want to. And then she kind of passes out.
But see, I'm going to make a complaint here.
Please.
Why doesn't he have like this look upon his face when he realizes she's the spitting image of his lost love? You don't see any of that between them until the very end.
I think the thing about it is that he recognizes her, but this is kind of like the way they do it. This is like how he expresses his love, like in that kind of Hellraiser thing.
There should have been something more obvious. As far as I know, that's what he says to everybody. We don't know.
Right. Well, it could just be like a late rewrite in the third act where they're just like, whatever.
Because I
kept thinking, the long lost.
I kept thinking to myself, are you saying that all these other victims volunteered? I'm like, what's happening now?
Right. And frankly, this is when the movie takes a total left turn, where it's just like, whoa, what happened? This is going to be a movie where, the killer is after her, but it becomes, so she's knocked out, and she wakes up in a pool of blood in Anne-Marie's bathroom, and there's a meat cleaver on the floor next to her.
And then a Rottweiler's head.
Right. Anne-Marie's Rottweiler's head has been lopped off. There's blood everywhere, and Anne-Marie's baby is missing.
I'm just going to tell you, that little tiny meat cleaver does not take off a giant Rottweiler's head. You would have had to be in there with like a bread knife or something, man. That was a fat neck. You're going to be sawing on that biz for a while. That's not just like a quick, it's not a samurai sword.
No, it's not. It's not a chainsaw. Anne-Marie sees her and immediately thinks that she's the one who's done it. And frankly, did she do it? I don't know. Does the Candyman use a use a cleaver here? It's hard to say.
It's
what the
hard
story
to
is.
say. And quite frankly, didn't you think the baby was all chopped up?
Well, because you just saw blood splattered everywhere, and there was blood in the little bassinet or whatever, his little crib. But you don't see. So I think you're supposed to think that.
Right.
So Anne Marie attacks Helen. Helen has to chop her with the cleaver to get her to leave her alone. Cops bust in. Now they're on time, evidently. Thanks for your help there.
Yeah.
They arrest her.
Within 2 screams, they're kicking in the door.
They arrest her, including the police officer who was patting her on the back earlier in the movie, saying, "Good job." Not so much anymore.
Yeah.
But this was so bizarre. So they're like, we don't think that the baby was killed. We think the blood was from the Rottweiler.
Right.
That's what we think. So because of that, we're going to let you go. Even though you were in this woman's apartment, you attacked her with the cleaver. Like, literally, there's a cleaver wound on the woman's arm.
Right.
Blood everywhere.
And a baby is missing.
It's called white privilege. That's how they do.
That's what I was going to say.
White privilege. A white man can go into Cabrini Green and start chopping people, let off with a warning. That's all I'm saying. And the cops arrive in 2 minutes. Anyway, moving on. So now the whole thing is like, is she the murderer? What's going on? So over the course of this, Candyman keeps popping up basically saying, if you give yourself to me, and I'll give you your exquisite death, then I won't harm the baby.
Okay, so what we're to assume this is his foreplay. I love you so much. I'm going to keep setting you up for various murders.
Right. That's basically I'm gonna blackmail you into becoming my undead lover, I guess.
Exactly. Or how about, hey, remember me?
Right.
There's not even like in every other one of these
remember
movies.
you.
Exactly. Every other one of these movies, they like at least try to convince them that they knew each other.
Right.
Look,
crossed oceans of time to find you.
None of that.
Nothing. And you also at this point might be wondering, when is somebody going to say Candyman 5 times? Still waiting on that.
Maybe it's like Beetlejuice. If you say it again, then he goes away. So Trevor picks her up. Oh, but that's great. So she's in jail, right? She's been arrested. And so she's like, her one phone call, she calls Trevor. At
3 o'clock in the morning.
3 in the morning.
Not home.
Uh-huh.
Not home. So my question is, did he know she was going to be arrested for murder? And that's when he's like, hey, I'm going out. Or was he just like, I'm going out anyway? Thank goodness you were arrested for murder. I'm not sure how it works.
Yeah, they did try to make it sound like maybe he somehow setting her up. I was getting this a feeling like they were trying to pin some other guilt on him besides just this trashy philandering.
Basically, that's all it is. He's a trashy philanderer who doesn't work very hard to hide his tracks.
Yeah, he's stupid.
Right. Well, or he just doesn't care enough to make the effort. Basically.
There you go.
So Trevor brings her home. He picks her up again. No bail or anything. You're free on your own recognizance. So they go home. She's like, again, drenched in blood. She's washing herself off, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I hate to leave you, but I got some meetings to attend to.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
I'll be back in 20 minutes, never to be seen from again.
Right. My understanding is you're accused of murder.
She doesn't even try to. She doesn't even care.
No. She's not like, hun, really? You can't postpone the meeting?
You can't
I've been
postpone
accused
the
of
meeting?
murder?
Hey, my husband said he'd be back in 20 minutes. It's now like the next day. Nobody cares. Nobody notices.
Right. So she's just around her apartment, still researching the thesis that she was going to be working on. She's watching old videos of Cabrini Green. She goes to the medicine cabinet, and then the Candyman's claw comes through the hook, comes through and tries to get her.
Yeah, that was good.
And that was a good scare.
Yeah.
And evidently she didn't even know it was coming.
Oh,
so
really?
her reaction is real, yes. So good times. And Candyman's there, and it's that same thing of like, give yourself to me. Let me kill you, or whatever he says.
Right.
And I'll let the child survive. And he takes the hook and kind of pokes her in the neck with it. And I'm like, Now he could just kill her. There's multiple times he could have just killed her. So I don't know if she has to like submit to the murder.
Because why? Because then what? And like I said,
know.
nobody else had to submit.
No.
Do you think that little kid that got castrated was like, all right, go ahead?
He went to the bathroom and said Candyman 5 times, maybe.
There you
while
go.
He's doing his business.
Oh, Lord.
So, and then here comes Bernadette, old Bernie knocking on the door with like flowers, who, again, doesn't seem all that concerned that her friend is accused of murder. Didn't seem that. She's like, honey, let me in. I'm here. Hope you're doing well. So the Candyman, of course, lets her in. While Helen is like in kind of a fugue state. No, run away.
Run away, train running down the tracks. Yeah.
So Bernadette.
So that only made her friend want to run in there more. So
right.
Then that's the end of Bernadette.
Bernadette, and this is in this movie, which is kind of the most disturbing thing. When he murders people, you hear the person screaming, and you also hear him grunting. Go back and watch it. It's pretty rough. You're just like, do I need this as well? The murder isn't enough. I got to hear the grunting. Okay. Anyway, so of course she's laying there with blood, with like a steak knife in her hand. Finally, Trevor arrives to find Bernie's corpse there, and they arrest Helen once more. So now they've got her on murder, I guess, because now there's actually a body there.
Right.
So we can't sweep this under
the rug. Did you notice
Whitey.
her face was like all blue and everything? What was that all about?
I don't know.
Did you notice
TV?
it? Did you notice it?
I did not notice her blue face.
Oh my God.
Very upset.
Not to be confused with the rapper Blueface.
No, not at all. The Blue Man Group.
Not the Blue Man Group.
And so she's like, people think she's just basically a psychopath. So they're wheeling her into like a mental hospital, tying her to a gurney while the Candyman floats above her bed.
That looked kind of cool though, with him coming down right on top of her, talking to her, and then drifting behind the gurney. That was kind of cool.
Murderer! He's under the bed! He's under the bed! Eventually, the doctor, who I guess is working for her defense, meets with her to talk to her about it, and she's like, no, the Candyman do it. And then she says, I can prove it to you. I can call him. Which seems like a bad idea.
Of course it's a bad idea. You had just been strapped to a gurney getting shot with like Thorazine because you were so crazy for a month.
Yep.
You don't even know a month passed by. But by all means, let's call forth the Candyman.
So she says Candyman, Candyman, Candyman 5 times. And seems like nothing's happening. And then the doctor goes, and the Candyman appears behind the doctor, killing him. Doctor didn't say Candyman.
Exactly.
Why is he getting killed? Don't kill him. He's innocent bystander. So he's murdered. Candyman again says, be my victim. But not before he like cuts her bonds. The thing that were like tying her to the chair. Snip, snip with his claw, with his hook. So she jumps out the window, climbs in another room, does some kind of Tai Chi, some kind of Taekwondo at the poor nurse who opens the window, knocks her out.
Yeah.
A prolonged scene of her stealing the clothes from the nurse.
Yeah.
I think they could have just smash cut to her in the next room wearing the uniform. I would have gotten the idea.
Yeah, exactly.
And so she escapes. She knows where the kid is located, back at Cabrini Green. She goes there. She climbs up there. Candyman picks her up in his like little place. Is belfry? I don't know what it is. Picks her up.
It's the farm on top of the project.
Pretty much. Takes her to like a table. And it's like laying over. Give yourself to me.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure this out. Is the Candyman have a mortal body, or is he a spirit?
This is a good question.
Because he's like taking a nap on a table at one point.
Yes.
But then appearing and disappearing, and he clearly has time to sit around and do mural work.
Right. It's hard to know what the story is, truly. So he brings her over to the table, and he opens up his duster to reveal like his rib cage and just bees everywhere.
Yeah, that was
not hot. And he opens up his mouth and bees come out of his mouth. Now she's got bees all over. He leans over and like kisses her with a bee mouth.
Oh, how much did they have to pay Virginia Madsen for that?
Those were all real bees.
Oh, yeah.
Even the bees in his mouth were real bees. So he does that good stuff. I'm trying to remember. So she wakes up.
Yeah, she's
gone.
covered with bees, and you figured
Bees all over him.
You figured. So at that point, didn't you assume that she had submitted to him?
Right. What else does she have to do?
She could say,
what else does she have to do?
F no, but I'm going to have a bee make out. I'm covered with bees. And then I wake up. I assume that was it. Deal was done. I'm like, is she
right.
Now she's not dead? What's happening?
No, you're absolutely right. It's like she's laying on the table as he's giving her the bee kiss. And evidently that's not enough. She wakes up and she realizes little Anthony, the baby, is buried under this giant bonfire. Evidently there's like a cavern in the bonfire. And my first question is...
She climbs to this top. This thing is like 5 stories tall, giant bonfire.
Huge.
And
right
she manages to burrow a hole back all the way down to the bottom because she hears the baby and she knows right how to get there.
Now, earlier in the movie, they kind of say, oh, they're building that for the bonfire, for the celebration. Do you know what the celebration is?
Black celebration. Something to do with Depeche Mode?
No.
Is it Juneteenth?
It's Juneteenth. Originally, with the story taking place in Liverpool, it was to celebrate Guy Fawkes
Guy
Day.
Fawkes. So what?
There is no explanation.
Guy Fawkes in Chicago, as far as I understand.
Not on the South Side, anyway. Regardless, there's no explanation given as to what this celebration is for. Why they're having huge... Maybe this is just spring cleaning. I don't know what the story is. But in any case, she burrows down. She runs up there. People are looking out the window and they see her start running in there. She climbs to the bottom. She finds little Anthony, picks him up, and there's the Candyman again. Now he's trying to get her. People are throwing gasoline on the bonfire.
Is he trying to get her or get with her? Well, basically, the kids are throwing gasoline because that little kid saw her with a hook crawling in, and he's like, the Candyman is in the bonfire. So he rallies everyone from the project to come out. They're like, we're going to burn this fucker down.
Burn this mother down. So now the bonfire's catching fire. She's deep inside. She's fighting off the Candyman, and she takes like a flaming piece of like wood and stabs him in the heart like he's a vampire. So evidently he is physical at this stage of the game.
He's a magical being, but he's a liar because why is the baby in the bonfire? He didn't save the baby. He couldn't give a F.
Clearly not. So she's grabbing the baby.
That reason right there is enough to break up with him.
I agree. That's it. Ike Turner didn't even do that. So she's crawling out as the flames are starting to rain down on her, and she's shielding the baby. The Candyman is trying to get at her. Can't get at her. He goes up in flames. She is now burning. Baby's okay. She crawls out. People take the baby from her hands.
Her hair's on fire. Her back. She looks like Freddie effing Krueger. She's all messed up.
She's all Krueger. So when she crawls out, they do put her out, and they got the baby. The baby's fine, but she drops dead. She's horribly burned. She drops dead. Smash cut to it's the funeral. Okay, she's in the coffin, all burnt up. They didn't throw a wig on her or anything. Bald, burnt head. I'm like, you might want to get a refund from that mortician. Usually they put a little more effort.
Her husband used a Groupon for that biz.
Or at least go closed casket. You know what I'm saying? If it's that
it was
big
bad.
Of a deal,
it was like all kinds of weird wax and stuff. It was like like a bad job.
The only people who were at her funeral, because I guess everyone else, she either had no other friends, Bernie's dead, are her soon-to-be ex-husband, who she dropped in on earlier in the movie when she escaped from the mental institution. She popped in. Stacy, the co-ed, has moved in, and they're painting the walls pink,
like a strip club.
So, yeah, he moved the new Susie in, Lickety
Within
split.
a month.
Anyway,
She's been in the mental hospital for a month. So he's already
Yeah.
figured she ain't coming back.
she ain't coming back. So it's Trevor, it's Stacy, it's the douchey professor that she met at a dinner
She
party with the
literally
long
has
hair,
no family and no friends.
and her defense attorney. Those are the four people who attend, and not including the priest, of course. So they bury, but all the people from Cabrini Green like pull up like a parade. Because evidently, even though they thought she was a ruthless murderer a month ago, now they realize, no, that it was the Candyman, and she has vanquished the Candyman.
First
so now
of all,
she's
this made no
Yes.
goddamn sense. Because what did it look like? What lady who stole the baby was in the bonfire with the baby and at the last minute crawled out. That's what it looks like.
Right.
Not that she saved the baby. It's this crazy old witch. That's what it should have looked like. So I'm like, why
Right.
are these people coming? What? Because no one else
So,
saw
Jake-
the Candyman in there. No one.
no one. Well, but after the fire is over, they find his hook at the bottom of the ashes. So they take the hook and they toss it into the grave with Helen, which is that a tribute? I don't know. Is that something? Is there any other tracks you want to toss in there
Exactly.
while we're at it?
I was like, what?
I mean, what is happening? So they bury her up. Cuts to Trevor is now living with Stacy and is already having second thoughts.
crocodile tears.
Already.
Oh, Helen, I miss my Helen. Meanwhile,
It
his
is.
crazy 20-year-old girlfriend is hacking hunks of meat and throwing it around the kitchen. I was like, throwing it at the wall. What the hell was she doing?
Well, he's hiding in the
I'd hide
bathroom.
in the bathroom too.
Hiding in the bathroom from Stacy, who he's now annoyed with for some reason. I'll come out in a minute. Make whatever you want. Leave me alone. And there's like little. So then there's like a montage, like he's remembering all the good times. Like one time when Helen made him dinner and gave him a hug.
That's right.
Basically, in the course of the movie, he's like, "Oh, Helen,
come back to
Helen."
me, Helen." Yeah, Stacy doesn't hug me like that.
It was so ridiculous. So he's fickle. I think is a nice way to say
He's
it.
an
He's
asshole.
fickle. So he's looking at his reflection in the mirror, going, "Helen, Helen, Helen," and of course says her name 5 times. And then there's Helen behind him, all burnt up, holding the hook, and kills him. So I guess, is that the new urban legend of Helen?
Yeah, and what is
Don't
it?
ever go to a bathroom and say Helen 5 times. That's the moral of the story.
Then it shoots back to the barn on top of Cabrini Green, and now there's like an avenging angel portrait of Helen there. Painted by who? We don't know. Why is she an angel? We don't know.
No. I mean, infidelity, while not looked on favorably, not a capital
offense. He did not set her up. He was just a dick.
Right. He was just a dick. It happens. Any other bizarro observations before we move on with our lives?
Yeah, I mean, there were just so many threads that didn't actually go anywhere. I mean, he was making references, the Candyman was making references that Helen has to take over the role because she took away his, what do I want to say? You're like your church. What do you call that? Basically, his congregation. That she took away his congregation by setting up and having that other Candyman, the Candyman drug dealer, get arrested.
Right.
And by telling people Candyman doesn't exist, that took away the congregation. I'm like, okay.
Right. Basically,
okay, so then go somewhere with that story. But it doesn't.
No, they're all over the map here. They are literally
It's like
all
there's
over
3
the map.
partial stories. So there's so Candyman gets his power by having people believe in him. I mean, of course, we've done that story 1,000 times, but whatever.
Of course.
Then there's the story that Candyman's back to retrieve a lost love. But that doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
And so now we're left with what?
A blunder. I don't know. It is a combination of bizarro things just kind of smushed together. And I think I read somewhere Tony Todd was actually responsible for coming up with a lot of the backstory. Like that was kind of his contribution to the tale, I guess. But it's a lot of things, like you said, a lot of seeds that don't grow.
Exactly, because we don't even need a backstory because it really adds nothing to the story. Because then wouldn't you be out after like maybe the families of the people who murdered you? What?
Revenge.
Why are you torturing the poor people in the project? Other black people, they didn't do anything to you. What's that about?
Well, that's where he was murdered. He was murdered in the courtyard in front of Cabrini Green 150 years ago or whatever it was. That's why he haunts that area, is what they say.
I still don't understand why you make victims out of people that are already victims.
I agree. Well, it's interesting. This is kind of behind the scenes, if you will. When they were creating the story, Bernard Rose, who actually who directed it, he literally went to the NAACP and talked to them about, any potential concerns they would have. And they said, it's totally cool. Why can't there be a black Freddy Krueger? Why can't there be a black Jason Voorhees or whatever? Why not? I mean, that in a way, that is kind of a way to show like diversity. You know what I mean? It's like we don't just have to be kind of the street thugs or whatever. You know what I mean? We can be the hero, but we can also be the big villain. So there you go. Good time. They were all on board. What's interesting, though, is after the movie came out, people had concerns, as you might imagine. At one point, Clive Barker said people used to come to him and say, how dare you co-opt this African-American urban legend for telling us a scary story? And he actually had to tell them, I made this up. Candyman did not exist until I made it.
Exactly. Oh, that's it, too.
This is mine. So, good times had by all. One thing that was popping up to me, and I was kind of curious about it. Okay, so Helen wakes up in the bathroom, dipped in blood, right? And you can already hear Anne-Marie screaming, where's my baby? Where's my baby? What I kept thinking to myself is, what is the timeline here? Did Anne-Marie come home from work with the baby?
That bothered me too. So was the Rottweiler babysitting the baby? Where was she?
That's the question. Yes.
I suppose she could have been asleep in the other room. But
she must be a deep sleeper if I'm murdering the Rottweiler right next to her. These are not big apartments. So that's obviously a question that we may never know the answer to. The bees in this movie were all real bees, and they were bred specifically
to sit in your mouth.
Well, there's a certain period when the bees are in their bees' life cycle where they look like mature bees, but they're still young enough that they won't really sting you. And it's a hard thing to quantify, because despite that, Tony Todd was stung 23 times. Now, 23 times over the course of the franchise, basically. But what's interesting is he had a writer in his contract that said they would pay him $1,000 for every bee sting.
Right on.
He actually had the bees in his mouth. He had a dental dam in the back of his throat so that the bees wouldn't crawl down his throat. But other than that,
I don't want the bees down my throat.
Oh yeah, and Virginia Madsen, allergic to bees.
Jesus!
And they basically told her, "Hey, no sudden movements. Lay down. You're good to go." And when they were done, they took out a special bee vacuum and just sucked them all up. Oh, my Lord. Easy peasy. They made 2 sequels to this movie, Candyman 2, Farewell to the Flesh, and Candyman 3, Day of the Dead. All starring Tony Todd.
I saw the Farewell to the Flesh, but I'm not sure if I saw the third one.
And they're remaking Candyman.
Is Tony Todd in it?
It's coming out. He must be. How could you do it without him? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to do some research, but
Did you know he was in Platoon?
Did I know he was in Platoon? I don't know if I did know that. I remember him. He was in the remake of Night of the Living Dead. He played the Ben part. And he was in The Rock with Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage. Tony Todd is great. Final Destination. He was in the Final Destination movies.
And Wishmaster.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
He started off in Platoon and then went completely sideways into all horror.
I mean, our game, right?
Basically, and he's in TV series. He's in like Riverdale. He's been in. I'm scrolling through these. I
guess
he was in Riverdale, and he was in Scream. There was a series. And Be Cool, Scooby-Doo.
I'm going to look this up.
God.
Is he
going
to be
Young and the Restless for 14 episodes?
Oh, was he really?
That's what I'm saying. He's done everything.
Hilarious.
Boston Legal, and as with all horror film, he was in multiple versions of Star Trek. He was in Xena Warrior Princess too.
He's the hardest working man in show business.
Hercules Legendary Journeys too.
Tony Todd is set to reprise the role in the upcoming Candyman, which would be a direct sequel to the original 1992 movie.
He was in an episode of Beverly Hills 90210.
I love Tony Todd. I love him. What can I tell you? He is dynamite. This is actually Tony Todd's favorite role and his favorite movie.
Well, because he's starring in it. Everything else, he's like fifth lead or like it's not really a person's name. It's more of a description.
Yeah.
So right on.
Virginia Madsen and Tony Todd had to take dance classes together to kind of show more of the romantic side, which I guess was supposed to be a bigger part of this movie. But then the censors got concerned. Not the censors, like the studio,
but because it was
interracial, because of the interracial. So you see one implied kiss because it's like behind his back as he leans forward, kind of thing. Not enough booty is what, as far as I'm concerned. If you're gonna have a romance, then have a romance. If you're not, then just cut it, because there's a lot of like you said, basically things that were introduced but never really followed up on. Another actor who was considered for the title role, Eddie Murphy.
Oh my God.
He was considered too short, though, at 5'9".
How tall is Tony
Todd? 6'5".
Oh, yeah. Well, at one point, there's this very awkward scene where instead of putting Virginia Madsen on a block, he literally has his legs splayed apart, and he's picking her up, and you see him rising up. It was super awkward, but yeah.
That's not easy to do. Pick somebody up off the ground.
So he was literally had his legs splayed and he's reaching down to pick her up. But and
he has a hook. He has a hook for one hand. It's even more
difficult with a hook. Let that be a life lesson.
So Virginia Madsen said that they used hypnosis on her during the filming of this movie. All the scenes where she appears to go into like a trance with the Candyman talking to her. She was hypnotized. Allegedly, she was hypnotized till she finally said, "I don't feel comfortable."
Of course. Why? First of all, why would you have to be hypnotized? This sounds like a group grope or something.
You're telling me. You're an actor.
Act. Yes. Hypnotized.
There's an old story, which I'm sure I've told 1,000 times. In The Marathon Man, Dustin Hoffman, who's a method actor, he's on the run. The Nazis are chasing him.
Man, so go ahead.
He kept himself up for 3 days in preparation to really give that realistic performance. Sir Laurence Olivier walks in, who's not a method actor, and just said, "Hey, why not try acting? It's so much easier."
Exactly. Thank
So,
you.
exactly. Any last thoughts before we move on with
I'll
our
tell you,
lives?
I always liked Candyman. That was back in my old Blockbuster days where it'd be Friday night, so I'd rent like 3 crazy movies. So no, I like the Candyman series. I mean, you know, you have a couple of drinks, you watch the Candyman. You can't get too analytic because, as I pointed out, it makes no
Right.
goddamn sense. But yeah,
No, you're absolutely right. The mood was great. It was obviously very well done,
very
very
well
well
acted.
acted. I mean, everything about it was great as long as you don't dig deep
You
into
just
the story.
gotta suspend disbelief and just go
You
for
do.
the ride. Go for the ride.
If you start digging through the minutia, you're going to be like, there ain't much here. This makes no sense. But if you just let it wash over you, you could do a lot worse than the old Candyman.
I can't even remember what happens in Farewell to Flesh. Did you see that?
I ain't watching Farewell to Flesh.
Oh my god, I used to watch all of these, and then I started watching like the full moon video direct to video ones.
Oh no, Subspecies,
all the Doll Man,
Puppet Master,
Demonic Toys. If it was, I was on the full moon mailing list. You know, any movie filmed in the former Yugoslav, so they don't have to pay union dues. You know.
So this is like Shakespeare to you, if that's what you're used to seeing.
Exactly.
Good Lord.
There you go.
Good time. So thank you. Yes.
Who is directing the new Candyman?
I thought it was like Jordan Peele. Maybe I'm mistaken.
That might be good.
Yeah. Excuse me. Written by Nia DaCosta. Written by Jordan Peele.
Okay.
So
I like it. Maybe he can bring some sense to this. Although his last movie was a little not so sense. I have to have a guide to figure out what the bunny rabbits and shit are supposed to mean. I don't want that.
I agree.
But
no, Get Out was great. Us was kind of like Candyman in a sense. If you start digging too deep, you immediately are like,
I liked Us.
What does that mean?
It was super creepy, but a lot of it you're like, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on there. So thank you very much for joining us. Go to our page on Facebook at The Podcast That Wouldn't Die. Go to our page on Twitter at TPodcastTWDie. Email us at The Podcast That Wouldn't Die at Gmail. Aaron, any emails for us? Anything you want to share? Anything? Fan mail?
Let me see.
Anything?
No fan mail. A
couple things from Google saying thank you for having an account with us.
Every now and then, Google thanks us.
That's important.
I'm getting tired of being locked in my house all day.
So maybe you should email some people from that account, I guess. Just
get
the ball rolling.
Just email strangers. I'm like I'll email myself, but I'll put like a number after it and see if that belongs to anyone. See if anybody responds.
Why not? See what happens. Say Candyman 5 times. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc., etc., etc. Like, share, subscribe, and rate. Evidently, that's how you get the big bucks. So we're just waiting for the money to roll in. Good times. So, thank you very much, and be well.
Later, skaters.